Welcome to our Ayurveda talk. My name is Marie, and I'm an Ayurvedic practitioner. And I will also be providing a yoga class after this talk that is specific to Ayurveda and the doshas and the elements. And so, depending upon what's going on in the season, the day, and even the time of the day, we will be doing a dosha appropriate practice. So, it's such a great way of doing yoga because we are using yoga as a treatment of Ayurveda. But we are going to be talking today about the channels that move throughout the body. We call them shrotas. And we have these channels are the major channels in the body. And they're also the channels that I am working with when I'm doing marma. So I'm working with opening up these major channels. So, what systems do these channels impact? So, I wanted to talk a little bit about the systems and the channels that are connected to them. So, the first channel is a channel that is connected to our breath, our vital breath. And if you are suppressing or there's blockage in that area, let's talk about if that channel gets pushed out of balance, if the vital breath channel gets pushed out of balance, it's usually due to suppression. So, what causes what we would call vitiation? What causes vitiation of each of these channels? For the vital breath, it's suppressing of natural urges. What are our natural urges? Needing to go to the bathroom, sneezing, those are all natural urges. So if you suppress those, then you are going to cause a problem with this particular channel. It also is caused by oil can push it out of balance. Being hungry can push it out of balance, and exercise, the kind of exercise, can push it out of balance. Too much or too little. Okay, now if we look at symptoms of blockage for that channel, it would show up as a cough, asthma, or a hernia, a hiatal hernia, and symptoms of overflow, which means there's an excess of energy in the channel. It would actually be affecting the lungs. Okay, so those are how it shows up. Now, the next channel is our water metabolism channel, and that gets pushed out of balance by heat, indigestion, alcohol, dry foods, and excessive thirst. So, if you're doing lifestyle diet things that are associated with any of that, you're going to push that water metabolism. You're going to cause what we call a vitiation. And the symptoms that will show up will be diabetes, pancreatic cancer, dry tongue, palate, lips, and throat. It's all going to go just dry up. And then symptoms of excess are anorexia and watery vomiting. So, vomiting will start happening. Okay, so that is water metabolism. Next channel that we're going to talk about is the digestive channel. And we're talking about energy channels, you guys. So if you're not sure, I'm not talking about physical channels. These are physical channels, but I'm talking about the shrotas, these channels that move forces through the body. So the digestive channel is unwholesome and indigestible food. So food that lacks vital force, prana. That's why we do not eat canned food in Ayurveda. We really discourage it. And the symptoms that will show up if you have blockage in the digestive system, it will be tumors, and other symptoms of excess will be vomiting, issues with the stomach, and intestines. Ulcers can also show up. The next channel is the plasma. And what can cause it to be vitiated is excess heavy. So too much heaviness, heaviness in the food, heaviness in your lifestyle, lethargy, cold, oily foods, and excessive worry. So if you're worrying too much, you're causing heaviness. And then the plasma symptoms of blockage would be severe swollen glands, lymph obstruction, and then also, if it continues, it'll show up as lymphatic cancer. And then symptoms of excess, so too much flow, too much, is bleeding with a cough. All right. Ooh. So the next channel is relating to blood or hemoglobin. And the things that cause it to get pushed out of balance, vitiation, is heat, oily, irritating foods, drinks, sun, and fire exposure. Too much heat. Pitta people. These are those pitta people that tend to get these issues. And blockage would show up in the liver, the spleen, and they would become enlarged. Also, arrhythmia can happen. And then overflow means there's going to be bleeding. So bleeding will show up. That's an excess. All right. The next channel is muscle, and it gets pushed into vitiation from heavy foods, sleeping right after meals. So no napping after you eat. I know there's places that do that, but it's actually very, very unhealthy for your muscular tissue. And muscle blockage would be chronic inflammation and muscle tumors. And overflow would be tearing of the muscle tissue. So if you start having tears, that means there is an excess. Okay. All right. The next channel is fat, adipose tissue. And that is gets pushed into vitiation, going out of balance by no exercise, day naps, so napping during the day, and eating too much fatty food. And that with blocks, the symptoms that will show up, blockage will cause tumors. So they're usually fatty tumors and oftentimes benign. And also arteriosclerosis. I'm so bad at some of these words. And then overflow or excess is tearing of adipose tissue, fat tissue. Okay, the next tissue is bone. Bone gets vitiated and pushed out of balance due to exercise that irritates and rubs the bones, or vata increasing foods. So, vata, remember, is ether, air increasing foods. So, a vata diet is going to cause a lot of problems. So, if you have too much dry, too much, there's not enough moisture, there's not enough uh, new nourishment that's coming from the food you eat, so it pushes vata out of balance. So you need to really look at what does vata need, and then nourish it. That's going to help the bones. And then for bones, blockage would show up as calcification, spurs, and cancer. If you have overflow, bones start to break. So excess, that means too much. Okay, too much what? Too much energy, too much excess of a certain lifestyle, the exercise that irritates and causes bones to rub. Okay, marrow is going to get pushed out of balance by crushing, excessive liquids, injury, compression of bone marrow, and eating too many dried foods. No granola, no popcorn, right? Those are all drying. If you are having blockage, then that's going to show up as convulsions, coma, and MS, multiple sclerosis. And then overflow is damage. So you literally will have damage to the marrow in the bone. Okay, the next channel is the reproductive channel, so reproductive tissue channel. And ultimately, it gets pushed out of balance by what we call untimely intercourse, suppression of sexual urges. That's going to also push your breath channel out of balance as well, because that's a natural urge, or excessive sexual indulgence. Too much sex will vitiate. Okay. The reproductive, when there's symptoms of blockage, it will start showing up as impotency, swollen testes, prostate stones, and uterine tumors. If there's an excess, then you will show up in having sperm in the bladder. Okay, the next channel is our urine channel that gets pushed out of balance and vitiated by suppressing our need to go to the bathroom. So that urge to urinate, that's a natural urge. Eating, drinking, and intercourse when there is a need to urinate. So that can also vitiate this particular channel. Blockage would show up as difficult or painful urination, obstructions, or stones. An excess would be the bladder bursting. Wow, that's pretty extreme. The next one is elimination, so feces, and that gets pushed out of balance by suppressing the urge to defecate, to go to the bathroom again, and eating overly large meals, eating before the digestion of the last meal was complete. We talk about that a lot in Ayurveda. You want to have 4 hours minimum between meals. That's going to prevent that. Okay, so blockage in that area would be tumors, intestinal blocks, diverticulitis, constipation, or scanty stool, pain, and sound. Excess would show up as the colon becoming perforated. So not good. Okay, the next one is our sweat channel. And sweat gets pushed out of balance by excessive exercise, too much heat, anger, grief, fear, untimely eating of hot and cold things. We're very particular in Ayurveda about when you have hot, when you have cold. We don't ever do ice, because ice is going to cause heaviness. Heat is going to push you out of balance and dry you out. Okay, so then that shows up as blockage would be no sweating, you can't sweat, and an excess would be sweat shows up in your plasma. All right. Then for women, there's the uterus, and the uterus is going to have blockage and pushed out of balance when there's pain and anemia, tumors, and then excess would be urine in the stool, and then too much bleeding. Okay. All right, so those are the channels. Very interesting. They're the shrotas. They are the channels that move our force, our energy throughout the body. Like I said, in Chinese medicine, it's called your meridians. I've said that in other videos. In Ayurveda, we call them the shrotas. Okay, so hopefully this is helpful. The thing that I want you to pay attention to the most are what causes vitiation. What are you doing that might cause these particular channels to go out of balance? And it's impacting entire systems. Okay, so we can take that into consideration with our diet and our lifestyle and make adjustments.